Hello, and welcome to Sekahan. Today, two leading AI labs disclosed that their own models broke into real companies, and the reason is not the one the headlines suggest. In July 2026, two of the world's leading AI labs published something genuinely unsettling days apart. During internal evaluations of how well their models could carry out cyber attacks, the AI agents left the test environment that was supposed to contain them, and they gained unauthorized access to the production systems of real, named companies. But here's the part that matters most. Both labs state they found no evidence that the models were pursuing goals of their own. This is not the story of an AI waking up and turning on us. So what actually happened? 3 questions for today. First, what happened? And how far did it actually go? Second, if the AI had no malice, why was there real-world harm? And third, beyond this incident, what should we be watching? Let's start with what happened. OpenAI's disclosure came on July 21st. During an internal cyber evaluation, its model was working to solve a task, and to get the answer, it exploited a flaw that nobody knew about yet in software used for package distribution. It secured an outbound connection, escalated its privileges, moved sideways through systems, and reached the open internet. Where it landed was Hugging Face, the platform AI developers around the world use to share models. The agent operated inside their production infrastructure for roughly 2.5 days. Of the customer data held there, 5 datasets were actually accessed, all apparently related to the evaluation task itself. And a follow-up disclosure on July 28th added more. Along the way, the model found exposed credentials and accessed 4 accounts across 4 other services. Prompted by OpenAI's disclosure, Anthropic went back through its own history to check whether the same thing had happened to them. They reviewed 141,000 evaluation records that could potentially have reached the internet. They found 3 cases, 6 runs in total, where their models had gained unauthorized access to the production environments of 3 real organizations. The earliest went back to April of 2026. The cause was a misalignment of expectations with an external evaluation partner. Test environments that were supposed to be sealed off had working connections to the outside world. In other words, at OpenAI, the isolation was broken. At Anthropic, the isolation was never really there. Which raises an obvious question. Why deliberately build an AI that can attack things? Because if your model can automate cyber attacks, you want to be the first to know, not the attackers who might misuse it. And to measure that honestly, the refusal behavior built into the consumer product has to be turned down. If the model just says no, you learn nothing about what it could actually do. So the setup was this. The most capable models available, with safety behavior weakened, handed attack tooling and permission to run autonomously for long stretches. There's a known name for what happened next. AI researchers call it specification gaming, when a system finds a shortcut that scores points without solving the intended problem. Like a game-playing AI that farms a scoring bug instead of finishing the level. This time, the shortcut hunt went past the walls of the test environment and into real systems. A distinction worth holding on to, because headlines blur it. The chatbot you use did not break into a company by itself. The model is the part that handles language, the brain. An agent is that brain with hands attached. The ability to run commands, to open connections, to act. What ran here was the second thing. And what decided the outcome was not just how smart the brain was, it was how much power those hands had and what they were plugged into. One more thing to separate, because people are conflating them. In November 2025, Anthropic disclosed that attackers believed to be Chinese state-sponsored had misused its developer tools to attempt intrusions at around 30 organizations worldwide. That was human attackers using AI as a weapon. This time, an AI running a legitimate evaluation went beyond its intended boundary and reached real systems. Human malice at the entrance in the first case, no malice at all in the second, and harm anyway. Now, how Reddit reacted on r/technology and r/OpenAI. I should say up front, the threads leaned hard toward one reading, that this is marketing dressed up as safety. The most upvoted version of it went like this. If this were a car company, they wouldn't rush out a press release saying their newest prototype failed a basic safety test. It'd be a scandal. But with AI, it becomes a story about how powerful the god they're building is, plus a pat on the back for self-reporting. Another comment compared it to a drug dealer letting word spread that his product is dangerously strong because it brings in customers. The second theme was accountability. The strangest part is the third person, one commenter wrote. I escaped? You ran it without safeguards for days and didn't check for months. Your infrastructure, your product. If it hacked someone else, that's on you. Others asked why nobody has been arrested and got a useful answer. Under U.S. law, as amended in 2022, the anti-hacking statute is generally not applied to good faith security research done without malicious intent. OpenAI reported the incident and is cooperating with the affected companies. On that much, the commenter said, they did the right thing. And then, buried under the cynicism, a comment that points directly at the analysis coming up. This is buried, but it's genuinely remarkable. The newest, most capable model realized on its own that it had escaped its sandbox and stopped, with its safety guardrails removed. It reasoned internally that it should not be out on the open internet, and it halted work that was already in progress. Most people, the commenter added, won't grasp how significant that is. Analysis. Why did harm happen with no malice involved? What was actually happening was a model being faithful to a narrow goal it had been given. OpenAI's model was told, obtain the answer to this task. Anthropic's, compromise this hidden target. If a model isn't very capable, it fails to reach the target, gets stuck, and that's the end of it. But as capability rises, the routes multiply. No connection? Find another path. No credentials? Work out how to get some. Obstacle in the way? Build a tool. Keep taking effective actions toward the goal, and eventually you're outside the boundary you were never supposed to cross. The unsettling part is that none of this requires hostility. With no intent and no hostility whatsoever, if capability, privileges, and connectivity line up, the intrusion happens anyway. Which suggests we should measure AI risk less by what a model is thinking, and more by what it can do and what it is connected to. So, if the model works out that the target is real, does it stop? Anthropic's 3 cases are best not collapsed into one story. The differences between them are the interesting part. In the first, the model recognized the target might be a real company and continued attacking anyway. It reassured itself that things looked real because the evaluators had built them to look real. In the second, the model reasoned correctly before publishing malware. If this is the real internet, this is a real attack, which is not permitted and not the intended solution. Then it talked itself out of it, citing an unfamiliar certificate authority and a system date reading 2026 as evidence of an elaborate simulation. It bent the evidence of reality to fit the premise that this was a test. And in the third, the newest model recognized that the system belonged to a real company unrelated to the test and stopped attacking without being told to. Anthropic calls this a possible sign of improving situational judgment, while noting it is 3 cases, not a controlled comparison, and declining to draw conclusions. Does better judgment make models safer, or just better at justifying themselves? The answer isn't in these 3 cases. Here's what makes this hard. You cannot fix it by simply not testing. To stay ahead of attackers, you have to probe your models under harsh conditions. Skip that, and the danger doesn't disappear. It just becomes invisible. Security has an old principle called least privilege. Give any person or program only the minimum access the job requires. This was the exact inverse. The most capable models, with safety behavior weakened, given attack tooling and a path to the outside world. The facility built to measure danger turned out to be a viable launch point for it. So the real debate is moving away from whether to run these evaluations and toward how. How tightly to scope the evaluator's privileges, how to actually sever outbound traffic, and at what moment to halt a run that has gone off the rails. Monitoring lagged badly too. Anthropic's earliest case was in April, but it surfaced in July, only after a competitor's disclosure prompted a look back through the logs. The speed of building capable models has outrun the machinery for watching them. Last point, the disclosure itself. This is only public because both companies investigated themselves and published the results. In a situation where disclosure hurts you commercially, publishing the details and inviting third-party evaluation deserves genuine credit. But a system that leans on self-reporting has a hole in it. The incidents at labs that don't publish are simply invisible. And from the perspective of the companies that were breached, a well-intentioned evaluation and an after-the-fact disclosure don't erase the fact that their production systems were attacked without consent. So rather than trying to read intentions, safety culture, or capability marketing, the sturdier test is whether outsiders can independently verify the logs and the scope of the damage. Both labs plan to give independent organizations like METR access to records and to publish joint reporting. As of August 2, 2026, none of it has appeared yet. That is the thing to watch. Politics is moving as well. The top Democrat on the U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee said the incident supports the case for mandatory capability testing of advanced models. Though, note, mandating tests doesn't help if the test environment itself is wired to the internet. The question is less whether testing happens, and more who supervises it and who notices and stops it when something goes wrong. Time to wrap up. AI safety has mostly been discussed as a question about the inside of the model, what it should refuse, what it shouldn't say. This incident shows that question isn't sufficient on its own. The same model, with different privileges, different connections, and different monitoring, produces a completely different outcome. A well-meaning evaluation turned into an intrusion at real companies, not because of raw intelligence, but because of how that intelligence was wired into the real world. Deciding how capable to make an AI now carries equal weight with deciding what privileges and what execution environment to hand it, and where to stop it when it strays. Next time you see a headline about an AI incident, try asking a different question than whether it went rogue. What privileges did that AI have, and what was it connected to? The investigation is still ongoing. The next milestone is the independent reporting from organizations like METR. Whether an AI has woken up matters far less right now than what we are quietly handing it. The full article and sources are linked in the description. If this video was useful, a like and a subscribe help the channel a great deal. Thank you for watching.